my fellow Wedding Florist friends, and welcome to the Wedding Florist Social Podcast. This is the podcast for wedding florists to learn all about acing their online presence. I'm your host, Vicky Laffey, and as a wedding florist of over 10 years now and a certified digital marketer, I want to help you get the right clients, get more followers, and never be stuck for content ideas again. Click the link in my description to get your free Wedding Florist Guide to Social Media Content Creation today. Right, hello and welcome to this new episode of Wedding Florist Social. I'm really happy to be talking to today's interviewee. We actually have Steph from Lobiloo, which is an amazing system. Well, I'll let her explain it to you in a second. It's an amazing system to help us florists with our proposals, quotes, things like that. And the reason why we've gotten her on to chat is because I'm very passionate about, as you all know, about working smarter rather than harder. And I wanted to talk to her about the general subject of using an online tool to onboard our clients and how that can help us convert more inquiries into bookings and make our lives easier. So, we're talking initial inquiry through to providing a quote or proposal and then actually booking the client themselves. So, Steph, first of all, welcome and thank you for joining us despite the distance and the technical difficulties.
Thank you. I'm really excited to do this. I've been looking a lot at how florists work in your part of the world, and we actually have a lot more in common. We have a lot of similar gripes.
Yes.
When you're talking about with clients.
Whatever country you're in, yeah, it happens like that, yeah. So, Steph, you work for Lobiloo, and I use a system called 17 Hats, and there are many out there, right? There's Honeybook, there's Curate, there's all sorts of systems like that. But I think generally, what these systems are designed to do, and why it fits in well with the podcast and what we're talking about, is because I'm all about, using the online presence in general to, just to make our lives easier, really. So there's kind of two sides to this. So there's impressing clients, with maybe a quick turnaround or a great looking professional system and, helping them envision the day and things like that. And then there's the, making your life easier, making the florist's life easier by having more of a slick process, like an automated process, and being organized and keeping track of your information and things like that. So there's the two sides to it, really. But using an online system as opposed to, just typing up an email or a Word document or, a PDF or something like that. Could you explain a little bit about why you feel that kind of benefits florists? Because you're a florist yourself as well. You've got experience there.
Yeah. So it sounds like, first of all, you totally know all the pains of being a florist. And I do think, in my opinion, you impress the client most when you can customize your proposal well. And also when you've shown that you're actually listening to their needs, which goes into budget, which goes into inspiration, which goes into timing and mood and all of that. So for me, having an online tool is really important for that. It's for the efficiency. I don't want my client to wait around and shop and get nervous and cold feet and go with someone else. But I equally don't want to just give them a proposal that looks a little rubbish, that looks like I haven't really put a lot of thought into it. So I think that's kind of really the key thing. Whatever system you choose to go for, it does need to meet those needs. It does need to be easy to use. It doesn't need to be pleasurable, right? Accounting's not pleasurable. Paying your taxes is not pleasurable.
No, it's not. I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said the word. Sorry about there's a slight delay, folks. If you're listening and we talk over each other, technology is not always our friend. But I think you hit the nail on the head there, Steph, when you said the word efficiency. It's not only is that good for the client, that's good for us. I can get a quote out within 15 minutes of hanging up the call. I could do it while I'm with the person if I wanted. Whereas in the past, I've had people, I've perhaps met with them either in my studio or over the phone or wherever it might be, and we've gone through a lot of detail, and then it's, it goes onto my to-do list, right, and then it can take about a week or 2 weeks sometimes to get done, and I don't feel good having all of this stuff adding up on my to-do list, and the client, well, they want it as quickly as possible, don't they? They get excited. They want to know what it is. They want to make a decision. So, it's good for both of us to be able to get quotes out quickly and to be more efficient, because, like I say, you don't want to be working smarter rather than harder, right?
Absolutely. And I think these days, clients prefer to have an ongoing conversation. I don't know about you, but I frequently revise a proposal because she may have all of a sudden said, oh, I want to add this table piece. I'm going to use a wedding as an example, because I just think it's something that we both share a lot in common.
Sure, I mean, that's what the podcast is all about and stuff, yeah.
Right. But so let's say I'm having a conversation with a potential client, and I give them a quote and they say, oh, what about this? And they draw something from Instagram or Pinterest, and I have to change the proposal. So I do feel that proposals these days are not like one paper and set. That would make our jobs so much easier. We could just give the paper, go back to designing, and and everything's done. But these days it's more of a conversation, and I actually think the estimation process is really important. It saves them time as the client, and it saves me. If someone doesn't like how I price something, they can just say no and find another florist, and that's good for me. It opens up more time for a different booking or a client that I actually may enjoy. So I do think online tools also accelerate the process of decision making for you as a florist. I actually see them as more empowering. Like, yes, it may take like 2 hours. Actually, it takes less than that to learn Lobiloo, frankly. But it may take you a little bit of time to understand the process. But what you're doing has such large ramifications for the rest of your workflow. It just makes things easy. And as we talked before the podcast, like my least favorite tasks are selling and pricing. I don't like to attract clients. I'm like, if I could just stay behind, the door and not do any marketing, I would totally be that girl. I just like,
wouldn't we all? Yes.
Right? I just want to like stay in my flowers, leave me alone. And the other thing is like pricing, because there's so many florists who are female who struggle with this, and all of us, we all underprice ourselves. It's like the biggest thing in the industry. I know I need to do this. I have templates, I have proposals, I have all these flower recipes that I've done and I've priced successfully. And I can look back at the history and go, I don't care. I'm going to be confident in my pricing. I have my online tool. I know what I'm worth. It's calculating the math for me. I'm just going to go using the price. And I think that's what I find a lot of the newer tools, like, so for Lobiloo, for example, with a cost calculator, and a lot of other tools do as well. I think that actually is the biggest difference between, of course, you can use Excel or pen and paper, but the online calculator, there's something so reassuring about it. There's something so reassuring. When you put in STEM counts, it's like, oh, you can put in 11 or 17. And I think with the online calculator, you can actually be more creative. You can actually put in even numbers. You can add tabulations. You can tabulate in like a labor cost and a delivery fee and all those things. I don't know about you, but I get so excited. Like, I've actually done this before for a client where I do something pen and paper and I use my online tool, and pen and paper, I forget to charge things.
Yeah, it's down to human error, right? And I think, from a professional wedding florist point of view here, it's very easy to, like you say, be more of a florist than a business person or a marketer. Or so when I'm I found it much more useful to have a list of prices that I figured out in advance. I put them into my system. So I just need to click bridal bouquet on my system, or table centerpiece, or whatever it is for the client. And it inputs the item into the quote or proposal, or whatever you choose to call it. And that massively helps. And of course, there will always be things that, for example, if you have a standard price for a bridal bouquet, but this particular bride wants it dripping with orchids everywhere, and it's going to be a bit more expensive. But you can easily change that. But it's not figuring it out from scratch. It's not having to type it all into an Excel document every single time. It's click, done. So I find that process fantastic. And my clients are always well impressed that I can, and when I say to them at the end of the consultation, okay, that'll be with you within the next half an hour, keep an eye out in your inbox for me. And they're like, oh, okay. Because they've spoken to other florists and other wedding suppliers and had to chase them for quotes. And it's just been a real grind, so that in itself helps me convert more clients, because they think, oh, well, this is brilliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think exactly what you said, having flower recipes really help, reusing them, like substituting things. And I do feel like online tools do allow you to focus on what's really important. Like after you've done the estimation, after half an hour, you can send it to them. You can actually focus on sourcing the flowers, figuring out if you can even take the project with like multiple bookings. Or if you're a brand new floral designer, figuring out like who to use as a wholesaler, like that is actually the stuff that you want to pay attention to, not really,
Definitely. I mean, I'm always a huge fan as well of not doing too much work in advance before you've gotten an actual booking, before someone's signed on the dotted line. And I see so many other florists, on Facebook groups and things like that, sort of saying, oh, hey, can anyone, I've just had a consultation with a couple, and the bride wants the roses to match this bridesmaid dress color. And can anyone recommend a rose type for blah, 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 and all this sort of thing. And people are getting, putting a lot of effort into this and thinking about exact varieties and exact, all of this other stuff. And before the person's even booked, they're just compiling the quote at this stage. Whereas for me, I have my prices where it leaves a little bit of wiggle room. The designs are kind of up to me. I just know the colors and the style that the person wants. And I can just say, click, done. It's in the quote. And then I even have the emails automated. The templates there, the templates for emails and things are set. So if I need to, when I click to send the quote, I pick the email template, and within a couple of clicks, the quote is sent out. There's no typing out a long email to someone. It's just personalized. It's almost automated. So that process in itself as well really helps, I find.
I totally agree with you. I also secretly hope no clients are listening to this, because if they knew so for example, with Lobiloo, we're actually we're linked to Flora Abundance, so we have a depository of flowers, so I can just pull things quickly, and often I just pull like shades of white and shades of pink, and I'm just like, honestly, most clients don't know roses from carnation. I'm going to put something there until I find the exact shade you want, but at least I've sent something to you. I'm a very visual person, and most people come to as a kind of more visual, with Pinterest and Instagram. And it really helps when I'm able to just connect their photos of inspiration. And I kid you not, I blow up the photo, I take a pen and pencil, I'm like, I'm counting this. And that's how I arrive at the stem count. And I add like 20%, just in case. But that has been so illuminating for a lot of clients who think, oh, this looks simple, I just pulled it off Pinterest. No, it ain't. There are 5 colors, there are 5 different things. We haven't included, just like the vessel itself. So I think
but
it really
it's just
helps.
A small bouquet. Surely it can't cost much, right? Yeah.
And I think that's also like one of the things where I feel like having an online tool that has visual components, those clients, they share a picture. But when we see a picture, we see focal flowers. We go, okay, that's not in season. Boom, I got to get something else to replace that. We see like foliage, have no idea what that is. I'm just going to guess and estimate prices. And there's this and there's that. And you know, we sort of think things differently. And that's like one good example. But there's another example of a bride maybe who comes to you and goes, oh, this is like my mood. This is my venue. And you have to design things from scratch. And that is like infinitely harder. What do you do in a situation like that? I'm curious.
Yeah, well, I don't like to be too specific in the beginning. You know, if a bride or a groom or whatever they choose to identify as, you know, if they come to me with an image from Pinterest, for example, I know they're not exact. They're probably 99.99% of the time, they're not looking for this exact bouquet. And I see this on Facebook groups a lot as well. Can anybody help me identify this flower on here and this circular little flower in a Pinterest picture that the screenshot from the bride or the client? And you know, that then they're not looking for that. They're not saying, here's my inspiration picture, make me this bouquet. And if they did, I would strongly discourage them from that anyway. Just the way I work, I would say to them, well, you know, we work with a natural product in a creative medium. So that's not possible. I could have the exact recipe for that bouquet and still it won't look like that, because that's another florist's work, and nature might make the orchids a little bigger that day or smaller, or you know, it's just not going to be the same. So I don't even go into sort of stem counts and things at a quote stage. It's literally, you know, that's my price for my bridal bouquets or centerpieces or whatever. And I make adjustments, like I said, if they want a particularly luxurious one, or you know, that sort of thing, I would kind of add to that. But I don't even promise exact flower types. It's all I'm probably a bit unusual in that respect, but it's all it's all about the creativity for me, really, and I look at the kind of style that the client's after, and I'll price them accordingly. You know, I will create something nearer the time, you know, when I'm shopping for their flowers online a week or two before the wedding. And I will say, oh, right, that flower there would look beautiful. That would achieve the sort of style that they want, and that sort of thing. So initially, I think putting lots of effort into things like stem counts and things can be, well, it can feel like a bit of a sting when someone doesn't book. You know, I often used to do that, you know, in the first half of my career. And, you know, you put all this effort into it and then someone doesn't book and you feel really deflated. It's quite a sort of a kick in the teeth, I suppose, when you put all this effort into it, someone doesn't book, and sometimes they don't even get back to you, and which is another subject. But
I do feel stem counting can be controversial, like in that way. Also because it does feel, you know, a little bit like crappy to go, okay, this and this, and a bouquet can only have this amount of flowers, and it's sort of like it does go against the creativity a little bit.
But a lot of florists work like that, though. You know, they're more, say, numbers minded, or you know, they're very specific.
Yeah, and I think it comes from also the fact that we're working with a perishable product. Like not everyone, but a lot of people I know account for, you know, extra, always extra, because you just might get a delivery that has like 2 flowers that are bent, and you're like, oof, I wish I ordered a couple more. So it's sort of things like that I think like stem counting is particularly important when it comes to learning, when it comes to achieving your profit goal. But once you've had those templates and the recipes, and once you're really confident in your markup formula and your profit goal, like that does get easier over time. And that's also, I think, like that's a whole point of learning these formulas. It's like learning what works for you, learning what works for the bride, learning what works for an easy client or maybe a more challenging client. And I think for a lot of florists also, we are not great with our marketing, understatement of the year. But where we do get a lot of clients is through word of mouth. And all brides know each other. You know, you go to a wedding and you see something beautiful, and like, I mean, I don't know about you, but the first thing I'm like, where are the cards? Who's the florist?
Yeah.
I just, you know, and or like, you know, the same thing goes for the dress and the venue. Like all of these things, you ask your friends, you trust your friends who've gotten married, you trust them, and go on. And so, like, they also tend to be like trends within the friend group. Like one bride will have orchids, as you say, and the next person will go, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It has that color. I want brighter, like bridal bouquets instead, and so on and so forth. Seeing people use templates repeatedly because of word of mouth. And and that's actually where the stem counting and the profit margins and thinking about that becomes more natural. Like, because you're getting all those customers from word of mouth, it's not a brand new customer where the stem counting and getting to know them, the estimation gets really tedious. Like oftentimes when someone's referred to by word of mouth, the negotiation is usually quite smooth. Not always, but a little easier. They know your work. They trust your work.
Absolutely. They've probably been to a wedding, like you say, of their friends, and they've said, your flowers were amazing. Who did those? And the amount of times I've had people come to me saying, oh, you did my friend Kate's wedding or whoever. And yeah, there's a hurdle overcome before they've even gotten to you there, you know, because there's a trust element there. So, you know, if you have that, and then in turn get a quote out to them, or estimate or proposal or whatever you do, you know, quickly, whilst on the call, or, you know, a few minutes after that, then it's a win, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the simplest tool really works. And also simple does not mean the same thing to everybody. And so what is simple for me might be like a lot of work for you. I for example, I don't really understand Canva still. So when people do their proposals in Canva, I'm like, ooh, there's a lot of work. Like,
well, that's it. It makes it look pretty, but where's all of the, you know, you have to input all the information manually and move the boxes around. And, oh my goodness, yeah.
But some people love that, and it's also, again, part of their creativity and part of their artistry. I do think proposals, you can think of them as like a way to express your art. Well, it gets your style across, doesn't it? Right. I mean, certain systems. I mean, tell me if this is the case with yours as well, with Lobiloo. You know, certain systems allow you to adjust the colours. You know, that you can have your branded colours, or you know, that sort of thing as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why it's better for the client, why it's good to impress the client, and things like that. But in terms of making our lives easier, because I'm a firm believer in building a business that you enjoy running, and that isn't a complete chore. You know, I'm a huge fan of kind of having slick, kind of automated, easy, couple of clicks kind of processes. Which is why I love these systems, because, you know, our time is precious. And I don't know about anyone else listening, but, you know, say you've finally sat down of an evening, you've had your dinner, you've relaxed, and then you get an email ping through on your phones saying someone's filled in an inquiry form on your website. And even if you don't deal with it there and then, it's on your mind, and you're thinking, all right, I'll add that to my to-do list tomorrow. Now you can see the emails building up, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is what I'm going to have to deal with in the morning. Whereas with my system that I use 17 hats, like I say, and it's probably the same with Lobiloo. You know, I can literally just within a couple of clicks, because I've got my email template set up, I can click onto that, the button on that email. I can click to say inquiry decline or inquiry response, you know, if I want to invite them for a consultation. It automatically fills in the email, and then I click send, you know, so it's like
3 clicks, I think, and it's done automatically. So that in itself, it takes a load off me, because I am not thinking, oh my goodness, I've got all this stuff to deal with tomorrow, but I'm also not interrupting my evenings by having to manually type out a huge email every time. But also, being organized and keeping track of information as well. So to have one system that you can just log into, and all of the information is there. If you want to check on like a particular client, you have to recall how much deposit they've paid, or something like that.
Really simple. That's a big request on our end. We would be surprised how many people actually do use that.
Well, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because it's huge. Like you say, it's when I used to use a manual I used to type it up on a Word document and then save that as a PDF.
Oh, wow.
And it was just all confusing, and I don't wish to ever go back to those days. But I would have to remember to keep all of this electronic stuff in one folder on my computer, back it up somewhere else, but also print it off for my file. And then I'm also thinking, okay, right. So when did they pay their booking fee or their deposit, or how much did they pay? And just all of the details about that client are on one system. So I don't have to worry. I mean, I still print things off, but that's more to have a double check. Exactly. I like to have things in 2 places. Yeah. But it's good to have everything in one place, and
it's true. It's true. I do know florists who also have more robust systems. Like they'll have a CRM and then something else for their website and a proposal system. And they do really well with that. So major props to them. And then there are others that are much more like us, who prefer to have one system deal with everything. I also have the same thing. Like with Lobiloo, you can just put in a web to lead form, so clients can actually directly just contact you there, request a code. You can send I can send just payable invoices and track payments on very easily. And so you can just make your invoices click to pay. And I find that so helpful, because I can just go back to one portal and check if they're paid, if they haven't paid, or if they haven't finished their payment. But I think also, it takes time to come up with a system and to get comfortable with a tool. And I have to say with any tool, I think you really need to know what's the intention. That's the first thing. Like what your workflow is like. If you are someone who, when you see an email, you're just like, oh, it's in your head, you have to set up a fail safe for that. I think that's important with any tool. You also need to understand your workflow. Are you the kind of person who, after you get off the phone, you'll send a consultation, or do you have someone else who can do that for you? Because that's a different workflow. You also have to know, how are you with tracking payments? And let's be honest, it's always a little, it's a little off.
But yeah, so keeping track of everything. There's a whole range of ways that this can be easy. Being organized, keeping track of everything. Making sure you're charging correctly. Just kind of listing, bullet pointing all the benefits of a system like this. Really, having a quick turnaround. Having a professional look to your system, helping them envision the day. There's just a whole bunch of reasons, really, why having a system as opposed to just a Word document or a PDF or something like that helps. And just to chat more about inquiry forms there briefly before we go. Having, like you say, a website lead form that links directly into your system, whether it be Lobiloo or 17 Hats or whatever it is you use, it makes that process all the slicker, but also, us florists get DMs through Instagram or emails saying, hey, you're free on that date, et cetera, et cetera. So people come from all over the place. And to have that single point that you can refer people to and just say, that's great, I'm free on that date, here's the link to my inquiry form. And they go to the website, they fill that in. helps massively because you can personalize your form. You can personalize your quotes, the whole thing, and the whole workflow really, to make it you, to make it on brand. And so just to sort of chat about the elaborate on the workflow part of it as well. Like you said earlier, you have to build a system that works for you, because then there's no one cookie cutter system, right?
Absolutely.
And it does take a little while to set it up, but once you've got it how you want it, that process is just so slick, whatever system you use. So yeah, I absolutely, I'm massively in favour. We'll have links to both 17 Hats and Lobiloo in the podcast show notes as well. So yeah, so you guys can have a little look. But I'm a massive fan, and I would never go back to the old manual way unless I had to. But if anyone's listening, and I think maybe if you're first starting out, or maybe you are a little you've been in the industry a long time, and you just doing things manually, like in writing or whatever, is how you learned, and you just haven't managed to kind of get into a new way of doing things. It can feel a little strange at first when you kind of start using a system like this. But once it's done, it's amazing. And I'm assuming you guys, Steph, have like a good tech support and things like that. So if people have questions to ask, they can just pop you an email or whatever.
Yeah. We actually have a professional florist to take care of tech support. And I think like I do see a lot of florists getting not so much recently, but I do see a lot of florists like trying to sort of use several tools at the same time. And I think I do think it makes more sense to try a tool, invest in it for a month or two, and then see how it ties into your existing system before moving on. So for example, if you have like having a website up, that's already amazing, right? And then you have these DMs coming from Instagram and Facebook, and maybe you decide, okay, I need a CRM, I need a customer like relationship manager, and you use that, and you try it for a month, and you realize, oh, I don't actually need such a robust system. That's good. Exit. Don't give yourself so much work. But then try the next thing. Then next you can try a software proposal system, and then next you can try like a marketing tool like Hootsuite. Especially starting out, we just go crazy. We fire on all cylinders. We try to have like a marketing software tool and Hootsuite and a proposal tool and everything else, and you're like, that's too much. Do one thing at a time. So I think definitely making the workflow a bit simpler for you. I think that's like that was something I wish I learned a long time ago. Definitely.
And having a tool, an online tool, whichever one it is, helps a consistency with that as well. So
Absolutely.
From a customer's point of view, that's really helpful. And because that if they've asked their friend, who did your wedding flowers, and they said, Vicky at Floral Quarter, she was amazing, and to give her a go, she was so easy that she got the quote out really quickly, and yada yada. So if they say that, and then this person comes to you and has a consultation with you and gets the quote, and it's a completely different experience to what their friend had, that's going to be confusing. They're probably not going to book. So having this consistency with your email templates and your general process, it really helps with the consistency, and that is a huge thing that I think is overlooked with a system like that. It's something you don't get when you are typing up Word documents or replying to emails on the fly before you cook dinner, or
So I listen to the Huberman Lab. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I listen to a podcast about productivity. And just your story about, getting an email and then feeling the need to respond to it right away. It just reminded me of that, where the first 8 hours of your waking day, that's when ideally Andrew Huberman recommends that we focus on analytical task. And then the second half of the day, second 16 hours upon waking up, you focus on more creative tasks. So simply put, like, think morning and afternoon, right?
Yeah.
I do think the takeaway from that is, like, deciding to respond to an email at night. You're not doing yourself justice. You're not giving yourself the best way to impress the client. And no online tool can fix that. No online tool can fix shitty productivity habits. Like, let's be real. Like, it makes much more sense to actually batch your work. And then, then I like to do, for example, I like to do all my admin tasks in the morning and get my workflow out and crank out all my proposals. And then the afternoon, it's just designing, it's just creative works. And I set really hard limits on that, because again, it doesn't matter if I have, like, I don't know, the Tesla of, like, proposal tools.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably a good way to work it. I think in morning and afternoon. So, I mean, these workflows, these online systems, these tools, all they're doing is reflecting a process that you have. You as the human design the process. You then make the system do what you want it to do. And that's the beauty of it. You can, they can be personalized, they can reflect you, and you don't have to fit in with them. They fit in with you. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off using a system like that, is that they feel it might be difficult or awkward, or it'll not quite do what they want it to do. So yeah, I love that they can be personalized. So Steph, I think we'll leave it there, because I think technology might be about to fail us right now. I think in terms of the sound, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It really has. We'll put the link to Lobiloo in the show notes so people can get their free trial and things like that. Yeah. Anything you want to mention?
Offer, Yes, I do. I actually wanted to offer anyone who's listening to this podcast a 2-month trial instead of the 2 weeks that we usually have. Because I do think, like, as we talked about this entire podcast, hopefully through the technological issues, is that, like, it takes time. Yeah, it just takes time to find your groove.
Yeah, and 2 weeks goes so quickly, right? So
it does. It does. Yeah. So I wanted to.
Well, that's very kind of you, Steph. Thank you very much. Really good of you. We'll put the link to that in the show notes, and you guys can take advantage of that if you wish. But Steph, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for listening and joining us. And flower on. Well, thanks so much for listening all the way to the end of Wedding Florist Social. Remember to hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you want access to some free community and support, then head across to Facebook and look me up on the Worldwide Wedding Florist Community Group. I look forward to seeing you there.